Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video doing GWV Sunday Round Up for today's second video. So this is going to be your eclectic mix of this and that. We're going to be looking at things like sea surface temperature, anomalies, solar activity, ENSO, the SOI, Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, and the weather for the next week to 10 days and beyond as well. We're going to begin by talking about Storm Brenda. We've got a very nasty area of low pressure on the way for tomorrow, so sit back and enjoy for your Sunday afternoon viewing pleasure. The first video today was the second spring analogues update. So that's looking at December data. That video is currently on the homepage at GWV.com and also on the YouTube channel. And this evening, that's going to be placed on its own page, on the spring updates page, I should say. GWV, there'll be a written summary that goes with that as well. So you have to watch the video on demand, have a read of that for this evening. Also around 6, 7 o'clock, we're going to have Ensembles Watch as well, probably 7 o'clock actually. So that's going to be going through all 20 plus members of the GFS Ensembles, see what they're showing for the next week to 10 days. Before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So I've had a donation for GWV through PayPal. So I'm going to say a big thank you to, now I'm going to try and get the name right with this. I'm not absolutely sure about how to pronounce the name. So I'm going to say thank you very much for your donation to Kieshtil Tanjum. I hope I've got that right. I'm not absolutely sure how to pronounce that, but I'm going to say thank you to Kieshtil Tanjun for our latest donation. Big thank you, Kieshtil, for doing that. If you would like to become a donor at the GWV, all you need to do is come to the GWV's PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then give a donation to GWV. You'll get a mention in the videos. Say thank you very much for your donation. As long as you want one, if you'd rather stay anonymous, that's not a problem. Just let us know when you make your donation, and then we'll just say thank you to this anonymous person. But otherwise, we're going to give you a shout out and say thank you very much for your donation. Alternatively, you can go to the GWV's Patreon page and become a patron for GWV. We've got 64 patrons so far, so hello and a big thank you to our 64 patrons. All you need to do with this is come to GWV's Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one, and then you can give an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards to GWV. Again, you will get a mention video to say thank you very much for doing that as long as you want. When you're helping us to pay for the website, GWV.com, and keep content online. So a big thank you to all of our patrons, big thank you to all of our donors, and a special thank you to latest donor, Kieshtil Tanjum. Thank you so much, Kieshtil, for your kindness, generosity, and support for GWV. Thanks so much for doing that. Right, so let's get on. We're going to start off with what's happening in the next couple of days. I think that's the most important thing to focus on in the immediate term. So we've got a nasty area of low pressure developing out in the Atlantic as we speak. By midnight tonight, this is the facts chart, by the way, which is human interpretation of models by forecasters at the UK Met Office. So this is a midnight tonight. We've got a very nasty area of low pressure whipping itself up in the Atlantic, 952 millibars. And this has been named, it's going to be Storm Brenda. So Storm Brenda is going to give us a very, very nasty blow through the course of tomorrow. At midnight tonight, this low pressure is out in the Atlantic, but by midday tomorrow, Storm Brendan is deepening like mad and bearing down on us. Now with a central pressure of 940 millibars. Is a very, very intense area of low pressure indeed. So at midday tomorrow, you see very tightly packed ice bars across the country. Going to be really windy, gale force winds quite widely lashing the country through the course of tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, with gusts going up to 50, 60 miles an hour. Around Atlantic and Irish Sea coast, I think we'll see gusts of up to 80 miles an hour. This is enough to cause disruption to traffic and also to transport. It's enough to knock out electricity, knock out power lines as well. So a really nasty area of low pressure, really nasty storm tomorrow. Weather fronts is associated with this area of low pressure as well, particularly this cold front. That's going to see driving rain sweeping across the country tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. This fact chart for midnight on Tuesday. So at that point, the cold front has swept across the country and it's clearing away to the east. It leaves us very windy with these winds turning into the west. Severe gales made in the north. I think the winds do ease down a little bit down in the south, but it will still be very breezy. And then we've got this secondary area of low pressure developing in the middle of the Atlantic, somewhere near the Azores. And this one is going to sweep northwards on Tuesday as a very nasty secondary area of low pressure. This is fact chart for midday on Tuesday. So we've got a triple point low developing then with a warm front, a cold front and an occlusion. That's going to bring heavy rain northwards, particularly across England and Wales. There'll be some really strong winds associated with that on the southern side of the low. On the northern side of the low, on the triple point, there could actually be a little bit of snow. That'll be most likely across northern England if it gets far enough north into southern parts of Scotland as well. By midnight on Wednesday, that triple point low is somewhere off the east coast of Scotland in the North Sea. And you see loads of weather fronts with this, so there's going to be some really heavy rain around on Tuesday as well. Very strong winds with that too. Notice how tight back the ice bars are on the southern side of the triple point low. So severe gales again likely, particularly across England and Wales on Tuesday. So a very rough couple of days coming up. Disruptive weather. Well, they've had a very unsettled winter. We've not really had a lot of disruption from sort of areas of low pressure and gales. It's been quite an unusual winter in that respect because it has been a very unsettled winter, but somehow or other we haven't really had any, or not many anyway. I think we have one named storm. We haven't had that many notable windstorms, but the next couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, look really rough. Storm Brendan on Monday, and that secondary low may even get named on Tuesday. So, yes, very rough couple of days coming up. Do take care if you're off out and about. There are warnings at the UK Met Office, so have a look at those if you're concerned about what weather's going to be doing in the next couple of days. We don't issue weather warnings at GWV, we're not qualified to do that. The place to go if you're concerned about your safety is the UK Met. Always, that's the place to go if you're worried about your safety and need advice about how to stay safe in the weather. Go to the UK Met, have a look at the severe weather warnings. These are the wind gusts from our Persian weather outlook. So starting this afternoon, so not too bad this afternoon, a bit breezy, but really not much going on. But overnight tonight, that's when the winds really start to fresh up in the west into tomorrow morning. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, where we've got gusts of wind being forecast here, 70 miles an hour up the Irish Sea and around these Atlantic coast. Widely, even inland, we're going up to sort of 40, 50 mile an hour gusts across many parts of inland Britain through the course of tomorrow. Of course, Northern Ireland gets the worst of those winds first, with gusts up to 70 miles an hour through tomorrow morning and into the early part of the afternoon. Remember, winds transfer eastwards, so by 7 o'clock in the evening on Monday, we've got gusts of wind sort of 50, 60 miles an hour widely across many central eastern parts of the country. That's very windy for inland areas. I would have thought gusts possibly go up to 60, maybe 70 miles an hour across some southern, southwestern parts of the country. Again, around Irish Sea coast, 80 mile an hour gusts possible. Towards the northwest of Scotland, it's actually forecasting 90 to near 100 mile an hour gusts. That's out at sea in the Atlantic, but that could give the far northwest of Scotland some very windy weather as well tomorrow afternoon. Remember, winds begin to ease down a little bit overnight, Monday into Tuesday, and then another push of very windy weather later Tuesday through Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. Again, we've got gusts 60, 70 miles an hour being suggested here widely across England and Wales, especially in these more southern areas. So disruptive weather and a lot of heavy rain and with that as well. By the time we get through to Wednesday, things are then beginning to calm down, although still very windy up in the north with gale or severe gale force winds likely up in the north. So it's going to be a rough 48 hours to come. We're going to have a real battering through the course of Monday and Tuesday. As I say, go to the UK Met if you're at all worried or concerned about your safety with the weather during the early part of this week. If you need advice about staying safe and travelling around, then the UK Met is always going to be the place to go. Right, moving on with the rest of the Sunday Roundup then. We're going to have a look at solar activity. So this is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from solarham.net. We have a spotless solar disk. There's no sunspots at all. So therefore solar activity is at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days at least. This is the GWV Solar Activity Tracker updated by our good friend James Ackram. That's sent through first thing today. So this is bang up to date. The coloured lines here are our trend lines, the thick green and the thick red are our trend lines. The orange line is depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity. So we have had a little bit more of an active phase, actually, a very low level of activity, but have had some slightly more active days since around the end of the year and into the early part of January. You can see that from these orange spikes just here. I mean, this is a really low level of solar activity, but yes, we have seen a little bit of sunspot activity, and so that has been enough actually to raise up the thick green and thick red lines a little bit. They have lifted up slightly. Earlier on, you see that they were sort of flatlining away on the floor of the chart through the latter part of last year, but this little burst of activity has been enough to raise the trend lines up a little bit. Nevertheless, we're still at solar minimum. What's interesting about these sunspots that we've had recently is I think most of them belong to the next solar cycle. They are sunspots that belong to solar cycle number 25. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are in solar cycle 25, but we've begun solar 25 because there is an overlap between the end of one solar cycle and the beginning of another. But quite interesting that these sunspots that we've had around this New Year period have been associated with sunspots for solar cycle 25 rather than the current solar cycle 24, the one that we're about to end. We're at solar minimum. We're expecting to remain at solar minimum for the next few months at least. We won't know until we have, when we started 25 and solar cycle 25, until we have started it. But I think we've got a little bit longer to go yet, so cycle number 24. I would imagine the switch from 24 to 25 will be sometime in around 3 to 6 months' time, perhaps. But as I say, we won't know when we're going to start cycle 25 until we have actually started it. So activity remains at very low levels, as you expect, being at or around solar minimum. And that could be expected to continue through the next few months as well. Big thank you to James for sending that one through. This one's been sent through by a good friend, Richard Trott. This is telling us how things are progressing with the current spotless days. So, of course, we're very early on in the year. We're only 12 days in. But so far, within the current month, we have had 4 days without sunspots. Within the last 31 days, we have 21 days without sunspots. Within the current year, 2020, there have only been 4 days without sunspots. So we've been through this little burst of activity. Within the last 365 days, there have been 283 days without sunspots. That is 70% of 2019, just into the beginning of 2020. So that tells us we are still at deep solar minimum, despite the fact that we have had these this small level of sunspots over the New Year period. And again, those sunspots have mainly belonged to solar cycle 25. Big thanks to James and Richard for their data. Right, this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies are looking. Across, or were looking last week, we did last week's Sunday Round Up, across the world, and particularly focusing on the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the Pacific Ocean, I should say, just here. Atlantic Ocean is over here. We've got our 3 areas of interest. Let's see if we can lift this up a little bit. So we've got our 3 areas of interest. We've got the Northern Pacific up here. We've got the ENSO region just there. And then we've got the North Atlantic over here. Let's deal with the ENSO region first of all. So again, this is how things looked last week. This is from the 1st. This is from January the 2nd, 2020. Of course, the Americans always do the date the other way round, don't they? Have the month 1st and then the day 2nd. So this is January the 2nd, 2020. If we come to the latest, which is January the 9th, 2020. This is how things look. So in the ENSO region, I think we've seen a slight warming of the eastern part of the ENSO region, actually. So again, that's the Equatorial Pacific Ocean just here. ENSO, El Nino, La Nina, of course, is the cyclical warming and cooling of the Pacific Ocean in the equator, or along the equator, from Peru over here to Indonesia over there. So I think in the past week, this eastern part of the actual Pacific Ocean has warmed a little bit. Actually, it has warmed slightly. That's a very, very slight signature for El Nino. Where are we on the tabs? So we're just there. So we go back to last week. So again, we're on the warm side of ENSO neutral, definitely, but we have possibly just lifted up into very weak El Nino type conditions over the past week, particularly in this eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. It's very complicated what's going on with ENSO at the moment. It has been for quite a few months. So essentially we're on the warm side of ENSO neutral, but we are sort of borderlining between that and a weak El Nino. And the atmosphere has possibly been in a rather El Nino type state, I think, especially down in the southern Pacific Ocean. Also with this mild winter that we've had across much of northern Europe, that is possibly slightly weak El Nino-esque through the early part of the winter anyway. So, although it's officially ENSO neutral winter, I think El Nino has kind of played a little bit of a background role in this winter so far. In the Northern Pacific Ocean, this warmer than average area of sea surface temperature anomalies continues. That's not changing, seemingly, although things are cooling a little bit to the south of that warm area and also to the west of it. So it looks like it's in a little bit of a pincer movement, and possibly we will see this area cooling down as we go into the spring, perhaps. But at the moment, it remains we remain with warm and average sea surface temperature anomalies up there compared to what we had last week. Then in the Northern Atlantic Ocean, we still have this cooler than average area of sea surface temperature anomalies just here. So like a weak area of cooler than average sea surface temperature anomalies from the North Atlantic going down towards the Atlantic coast of Africa. So a little bit of a horseshoe shape of cold. And it's warmer just here. So again, if we get rid of that, it's cooler just there and just there. And then it's warmer just here. That's not a particularly good signal for a cold winter for northern Europe. That would tend, that kind of Atlantic sea surface temperature anomaly signature would tend to drive in more of a westerly type pattern. Very warm down in the tropical Atlantic at the moment. Not sure what's going on there, but of course if that was to continue and spread into this area through the spring and into the summer, that area was to become very warm, then obviously that might imply that we may have a more active hurricane season again as we get into the summer. But at the moment, it's really early days, it's only January, so this warmer than average area that we've got around here will probably weaken, I would have thought, as we go through the spring. Generally, the sea surface temperature anomalies in both the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans are very stable. There hasn't been much change for quite some time with those. So we'll keep an eye and see what happens. Southern Oscillation Index next. So this is measuring the atmospheric pressures in the southern Pacific Ocean. It's measuring the pressures between Darwin and Tahiti. And so when the SOI is in its negative phase, then the atmosphere will be reflective of El Nino. When the SOI is in its positive phase, then the atmosphere will be reflective of La Nina. This is from Queensland government. So if we scroll down, we can see that around the turn of the year, actually we did have quite a bit of negativity of the SOI. So on the 1st of January, New Year's Day, the SOI was at -7. On the 2nd of January, SOI was at -17. And on the 3rd of January, SOI was at -7. These are all numbers that are reflective of an El Nino type atmospheric state. But coming up to more recent days, the SOI seems to have gone into a more positive phase. So we have the 4th of January at +11, 5th of January at +18, 6th of January at +18 again, 7th of January at +5, 8th of January at +4, beginning to weaken a little bit, but then going more positive on the 9th of January at +7, and then the 10th of January hasn't been updated, interestingly, since the 10th of January. They're normally very, very quick to update this, but for some reason they haven't updated it, whether there's been some sort of holiday or something going on in Australia, I'm not sure. But anyway, up to the 10th of January, as far as we go, is to +13.57. These are all preliminary numbers, but they don't tend to change all that much. So it looks as though from like the turn of the year, when the atmosphere was in an El Nino type state, we have possibly gone into more of a La Nina type state over the past few days. That's probably good news for the fires that are taking place in Australia. It's been a dreadful season, of course, and drought is something that we associate, and very dry weather, hot weather, something that we associate in Australia with El Nino, really. But La Nina can be a little bit wetter. So if the atmosphere has gone into like a La Nina type state, albeit I wouldn't think it can last all that long, but if the atmosphere has gone into a La Nina type state, that might produce some rains and help to dampen down those fires a little bit. So we swing between El Nino and La Nina type condition, but despite that, it does look as though we definitely had a slight warming of the equatorial Pacific Ocean over the past week. So it is complicated what's going on with ENSO. We'll be keeping a close eye on it over the next few weeks. Notice these colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies are gathering and intensifying to the south of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That may be something to watch out for as we get into the spring and the summer. That could be the first indications that we're going to move towards a La Nina by the summer. I mean, the atmosphere has been in a La Nina type state in the Southern Ocean over the past week, but that won't be sustained because the ocean itself is like ENSO neutral to weak El Nino. But we may actually find that we go in towards La Nina perhaps as we get towards the summer. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on what's happening with ENSO in the coming weeks and months, of course. Arctic oscillation next, observed and forecast. So the black line is the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. Red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. As with the SOI, the AO is just really measuring the atmospheric pressures. This time, instead of in the southern Pacific Ocean, it's measuring the atmospheric pressure in the Arctic. So when the AO is in its negative phase, you're going to have high pressure over the pole and over the Arctic. You have blocking, and blocking, of course, is roots getting cold air out of the pole into the mid-latitude. So a negative AO tends to be associated with colder conditions. When the Arctic oscillation is positive, then you have low pressure up over the pole. You'll be bottling up the cold air. And that tends to drive westerlies, and so a positive AO tends to be a signal for mild weather in the winter. Well, the Arctic oscillation has been exceptionally positive over the past few weeks. That's where we are right now. So since around the new year, really, so over the past couple of weeks, the AO has been in a very, very positive phase. It's going to go even more positive, can you believe, in the coming days. Look at that, the red lines there. GFS Ensemble's forecast to go up to very nearly +5 with the AO. That is extraordinarily positive. May even be record-breakingly positive. You don't see the Arctic oscillation going that positive very often. After that, it does look as though into the second half of January, the Arctic oscillation is coming down. It looks like it's staying positive even into the second half of the month, but just not as insanely positive as it is through this first half of January. But overall, it still looks as though the Arctic oscillation will be trending on the positive side as we get through into the second half of January. One or two of those ensemble members take the AO into negative territory, but they are outliers. Not many of them are doing that. Most of them are staying on the positive, with a positive AO on the positive side, just a little bit of a reduction compared to the extraordinary, maybe even record-breakingly positive AO that we've got at the moment. NAO is very similar, so again, the black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation, red lines at the end where GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. So this is measuring the air pressures in the North Atlantic this time. So when the NAO is in its positive phase. You've got low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores. You will strengthen, therefore, the westerlies. It's a zonal signal, particularly in winter. When the NAO is negative, then you're going to have high pressure up towards Iceland and low pressure, or weaker pressure anyway, around the Azores, and that could be a colder signal, particularly if it's combined with a negative AO as well, of course. So the NAO is also in its positive phase and has been through all of this winter so far. Back in the autumn and even into the summer, had a prolonged run of negativity of the NAO. It started in the spring, actually. It started around the end of April and it ran all the way through to November, with the odd exception here and there. Since the start of December, though, we've had a positive NAO. This is exactly what happened last winter as well. Virtually on the first day of winter, the NAO goes positive, and it's still there. So that's where we are with the NAO right now, in positive territory. Nowhere near as positive as the AO is, but nevertheless, it's a positive NAO month and winter so far. GFS ensembles look like they're forecasting the NAO to stay positive as well. One or two, again, outlier members going to slight negativity of the NAO, but generally looks like we've got both the AO and the NAO trending in positive territory through the rest of January, really. So this will be a signal for westerlies to continue. Having said that, there have been a few hints within the model output of a bit of a cold snap coming up towards the final week of January. So let's have a look at the at some forecast data then. And we're going to look at the GFS ensembles first of all, upper air and precipitation ensembles for London. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. So we're very zonal at the moment. You'll see that by the way the coloured lines are going up and down. That is a zonal situation, quite stormy, of course, quite a stormy situation as well. We've already established, got Storm Brendan coming up tomorrow. Tuesday will be quite stormy as well. So we've got these warmer and cooler sectors alternating with one another as these areas of low pressure sweeps through. So that's all very zonal. Then temperatures rise up around a week's time, so around the 20th, 19th, 20th of January. That's as high pressure begins to build up from the south and southwest. And it's where that high pressure goes that's critical then as we go through into the last week of January, this period just here. But GFS ensembles actually appear to be trending quite cold overall, but we have these milder outlier members as well. The operation run, this is from the midnight GFS run, by the way. The operation run is this thick green line just here. That was a mild outlier in this period around 22nd, 24th of January, when we could have a cold snap. And then it becomes a cold outlier, or it became a cold outlier later on towards the very end of the month. So it's a little bit confusing what's happening in the last week of January, but there is the possibility anyway of a cold snap, which is something we've not been able to say for quite some time. Precipitation wise, lots of rainfall to come just during this period here, which is the zonal stormy period. After that, slight drying trend for a while when we could get this cold snap, and then maybe going very unsettled again by the end of the month. This is the temperature anomaly for the next week. This takes us from the 12th to 20th of January, overall above average. It's going to be a milder than average week coming up, exceptionally mild for much of Northern Europe still. But on the mild and average side for most parts of the UK and Ireland. Precipitation anomalies average to wetter than average. It continues to be, as it has been through this winter, mild and very unsettled. So this is that midnight GFS run. So this is for Wednesday. Low pressure is out to the northwest of Scotland. We're getting rid of that nasty secondary area of low pressure. It gives us the stormy day on Tuesday. That's moving away to the east of Scotland. But we're still windy and we're still showery on Wednesday. Thursday probably brings another bout of rain in off the Atlantic. That continues into Friday too. Next weekend, here comes this build of pressure. It takes a while to build it up, but it does dry things out for England and Wales. Still perhaps a bit unsettled, even at the weekend for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Winds are up from the southwest, so initially this is a mild ridge of high pressure. Early into the following week, so this Monday 20th of January, this high pressure increasingly building to our south and east, by the time we get through to Tuesday, the 21st of January, we are actually under this area of high pressure, mostly dry, probably mild. If skies are clear, there might be night frost and fog. That high is sitting over top of the country on Wednesday, the 22nd of January. Remember, at this point, though, the GFS operational run, midnight GFS operational run, is a bit of it's not an outlier, because there are other ensemble members doing what it's doing, but it's definitely at the warmer end of the range at this point, really, with this ridge of high pressure. Into the more extended range, the high eventually pulls out into the Atlantic. We start to bring in some cooler winds from the northwest, and then it turns quite cold into the last week of the month. This is Sunday the 26th of January. Low pressure begins to drop through the north of Europe. That takes very cold air into northern parts of Europe. The first real cold plunge for northern Europe in the last week of January. Weak turn winds into the north. That will bring wintry showers, probably snow showers in from the north. Although by the end of the midnight GFS run, that northerly is being cut off as the winds back into the west again. So it's only a short cold snap through the last week of January, and then it looks like it's going to start getting milder once again. That's a midnight run. It's the very latest 6 o'clock run. So again, starting on Wednesday, it's been updating as we've been speaking, by the way. So on Wednesday, showery and quite cool weather as well. Into Thursday, probably wet, at last into Friday. Over weekend, things gradually start to dry out as this high pressure builds up from the southwest. That's been quite mild air with it, especially the northwest areas will probably fill up with cloud too. The high increasingly takes over as we move into the following weeks. This is Tuesday 21st of January, dominated by high pressure. So we look at day 10, the high is ridging through the country. It is trying to ridge north, and we are putting in a slight northeasterly actually across this eastern part of the country. It wouldn't be a particularly cold northeast. It's just settling down, breaking us out of this stormy weather, and possibly if skies are clearing, as I think they might be, turning increasingly chilly from frost and thaw, but nothing particularly dramatic up to this point. Into more extended range, no northerly here with 6 o'clock GFS run. Actually, we bring back the westerlies, and milder condition with low pressure heading back in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Let's see what it did in its closing stages with the 6 o'clock operational GFS run. So eventually we do get some sort of half-hearted northwesterly, but that really has backed off the northerly cold snap that it was indicating through some of its runs and ensemble members yesterday. Might be a mild outlier, we won't know until the ensembles update. In fact, let's just go in and see whether they have updated. They may have done as we've been speaking. So this is the latest in terms of the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. So you can see that really it's a 50-50 split. The milder ensemble members up here, the colder ensemble members are down there. Lot of scatter, so there's a lot of uncertainty for this final week to 10 days of January. A lot of uncertainty indeed. We may get a cold snap, but it's by no means a guarantee that we will. GM looks like that, unsettled and showery on Wednesday. I'm going to go through to Thursday, probably another bout of rain. That clears out away on Friday, then we'll ridge up some higher pressure for the weekend, turn things drier for a while. We're back into westerlies as we move up towards day 10. By day 10 itself, though, the GM is putting down quite a cold northerly. That's only a cold snap, but it is turning colder for day 10, which is Wednesday, the 22nd of January. ECM looks like that again, very showery on Wednesday, probably wet again on Thursday, and then into Friday and the weekend. Things gradually start to settle down as this high pressure builds in from the southwest. Makes it a bit more of that high pressure, I think, the ECM compared to the other two. Eventually, that high pressure pulls out to our west, and we bring down a proper northerly, looking about a real northerly blast there by day 10. So although the GFS is backing off from this, or the GFS operational runs are backing off from this northerly around day 10, actually the ECM in particular is still going for it. Very uncertain situation. This precipitation forecast from Tometeo.com. So rain clearing out of the country today, turning drier and brighter. There's tomorrow's stormy, wet and windy weather sweeping across the country. And then there's Tuesday's massive rain. On the northern edge of that, some of it could turn to snow, particularly southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, in line for a bit of snow there on Tuesday. Very wet further south. That could take snow up into other parts of Scotland late on Tuesday into Wednesday. Wednesday's a rather quiet day with more showers, then rain comes back in from the Atlantic Thursday through to Friday. The weekend does turn a little bit drier though, so more and more dry weather with that ridge of high pressure over the weekend. And as we run up towards day 10, so that'll turn more unsettled in the northwest, but the south and east has reasonable amount of dry weather. So once we get to the weekend and beyond, things could start to dry out, but it'll be a question of whether the winds turn into the north. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is the 22nd of January. From the Icelandic Met Odds have 14 members of the ECM ensembles with above average heights, high pressure over and to the west of the country. 12 with high pressure again a little bit further to the west of the country. 10 with high pressure a bit further to the west of the country again. 8 with high pressure, and that includes the operation run by way, so that's what's bringing down that cold northerly. 8 with a mid-Atlantic ridge and staying up towards Greenland, that will be quite cold, bring winds in from the north as well. And then 7 with high pressure just out to the northwest, a little bit more of an Atlantic influence with that one. The position of the high pressure at day 10 is critical as to whether we allow in those cold northerly winds. In 2 weeks' time, these options that we've got, this is 27th of January, 10 members of the ECM ensembles bringing in westerlies with high pressure to the south, another 10 with high pressure sitting just to our southwest. They're all going to be milder options, of course. 9 with deep trough of low pressure over top of the country, that's mild and unsettled. Another 9 with low pressure over and to our northeast, that's bringing down a colder northwesterly. Another 9 with high pressure just to our southwest, and then 4 with low pressure to the south and hints of a Scandinavian high. That's the coldest option. So it looks like it's getting to last week of January, we're probably, if anything, trending towards more unsettled conditions once again. Nothing definitively cold within those options, I have to say. Possibility of a cold snap, but nothing absolutely certain at this point. Finally, with CFSV2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period takes from the 12th to the 18th of January. The coming week is mild with high pressure to the south, low pressure to the northwest, bringing in the southwesterly winds mild, unsettled, at times quite stormy with severe gales. Week 2 is the 19th, 25th of January. High pressure then takes over from the south, so that's turning things a little bit drier. Would still be mild unless skies are clear, and then there could be some frost and fog. All changed in week 3, which is the 26th of January to the 1st of February. Low pressure then comes back to the north. Not sure what's happened there. Let's try that again. Low pressure then comes back to the north. High pressure pulls out to the middle of the Atlantic. That's unsettled and potentially a little bit colder as the jet stream and the wind direction is lining up northwest to southeast. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 2nd to the 8th of January. High pressure then just out to our west-southwest. Low pressure's up to the north. Possibly hints at the jet stream dipping southwards across central parts of Europe just there, so that could hint at some cold snaps anyway. Let's not go any further than that, but possibly some cold snaps there for the end of January and into the start of February. Lastly, this time the CFS is forecasting the 700 millibar height anomaly for February. High pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, low pressure up to the north. It continues to look westerly, so generally quite mild. Although eastern parts of America, it's been a scene with the CFS for quite some time. Eastern and northeast America absolutely plunged into the freezer, with the jet stream doing something a little bit like that. Winter could well be unleashed for northern America very soon. Right, or northeastern America, I should say, very soon, because it's already been quite cold in the northwest. Right, that's it for GWV Sunday Round Up for today. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Do it all over again next week. Don't forget to check out those spring analogues, and we'll be back this evening with Ensembles Watch. So we go through all members of the GFS ensembles and see just how likely this cold snap heading into the last week of January is. That'll be around 7 o'clock this evening. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.